Hello everyone and welcome to the real world. That's right, today on DF Retro we're talking 3DO, and specifically we're looking at the smash hit Road Rash from Electronic Arts, one of the best games released for the system back in the day, but that's not all. We're also taking a look at a very recent new mod made available for the system, which adds some impressive new video features. And to do that I am joined by the living legend himself, Audie Zerly.
Hi John.
Welcome back. It's a new year. We have some new toys.
Well, we just released that Mortal Kombat episode, so we had a little break, but I'm happy to be back with the 3DO.
Yeah, so this is a little bit, this isn't as complex a video, of course,
No,
but the idea here is I want to talk about some stuff we've been doing here with the 3DO lately, specifically a mod known as the 3DO RGB from Blackdog Technology. So this is brought to you by the same guys that did the DC HDMI mod, which I covered last year, which adds full HDMI capabilities to the system with 1080p output. Absolutely wonderful mod. This one's a little different though, because the 3DO has some weird video issues, which we'll talk about here in a moment. But let's go ahead and jump into the game here. And we're starting here with some character selection.
Yeah, these.
I don't know. Let's see here. We could do Milwaukee John or Axel. I don't know who you fancy here for this one.
Oh man, this guy.
Let's go with him. Axel. Der Panzer Club, Ollie's Scootorama. So I guess this is like, there's a shop here. This is, old school Road Rash here if you've ever played that.
Yeah, did you play Road Rash back in the day, by the way?
I did play some Road Rash 2, I think it was.
So you played
the
original 16 bits.
That's right. And this one was really well known for being one of the biggest games on 3DO. So
arguably the biggest now.
For those that are not familiar, I'm sure most people here watching DF Retro are familiar with the 3DO console, of course, right? But the thing is, though, is that this is the brainchild of Trip Hawkins, who was, I guess, the founder of Electronic Arts back in the day. Yep. This was essentially one of the first, you could say, next generation 32-bit consoles. Some of the hardware engineers included Dave Needle, who worked on the Amiga and the Atari Lynx. So a very talented engineer. This is a very smartly made system. It has flaws, but when you consider when it came out, it's an impressive piece of kit. And because of Trip Hawkins' legacy, of course, he had the full support from Electronic Arts to make games for this thing. And Electronic Arts at that time was a very different kind of company. And they were very well respected, producing a ton of games. And a lot of them were great, including this one. So you got to think, this is a system from 1993, right?
Yeah, it's around 93.
The frame rate is obviously not super high, as you can see. And right now I'm actually playing it through a capture card, so I got a low frame rate with extra input latency, which is going to make this extra fun to play, I think.
Yeah, Road Rash.
We're going to see how this is going to go.
Does require some reflexes here. Yeah, the 3DO is very interesting, and you mentioned that Electronic Arts was, pretty well respected. But got to remember, they were also very independent at this time. Like when you think about the Mega Drive, they had their own cartridge shells. If you remember, they had the yellow button.
That's right.
They were very, they were a different company back then. They weren't so just sports oriented and a little bit forward thinking in general. So the console, the 3DO, is, I always liked it. I always thought it was kind of unfairly lumped with the Jaguar as some sort of like failed hardware. But
it had some success, didn't it?
Oh, it absolutely did. And for me, being a Japanese gaming historian as I am, it had a very interesting Asian presence, I'd say, this console, which I'm sure we'll get back into one of these days.
Ooh.
Oh, I fell off the
Wiped
bike
out there.
So,
and this is, of course you run back. You can all the characters in the bike, by the way, if you've noticed, are sprites that sort of scale and rotate as you move, which was an interesting way to save on processing power, I guess.
And
I mean, the game has the visual style reminds me a lot, actually, of Cruisin' USA, though not as detailed as that.
Would you say that Cruisin' USA reminds you of Road Rash, timeline-wise?
I guess you could say
Yes.
that. These were kind of contemporaries, though, cruising in the arcade.
Oh, word.
Specifically is what this reminds me of, not the N64 version.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
But yes, you were saying, so the 3DO was indeed, it had an interesting presence in the Asian market with some Japanese exclusive games.
Oh, even
especially.
Korean. I mean,
Korean as well, that's right,
yeah.
because Samsung had their own 3DO model, I believe.
Yes, I mean,
and there was LG, of course, or Lucky Gold Star.
yes,
The Gold Star
Gold
3DO.
Star. Yeah, I think
It was Gold Star at the time,
yeah. The 3DO
before the merge.
had a very independent mindset, and people could publish their own discs, press their own discs, and didn't have the same requirements as Sega and Nintendo at the time, where you had to go through these rigorous applications to get your game on there. There was no kind of limitations for the publishers, really.
I think that actually Trip Hawkins was one of the guys responsible for the Electronic Arts Mega Drive reverse engineering thing, and basically engaging with Sega to produce those carts. So it makes sense to me that he would be thinking of it from that perspective, and I guess he wanted to ensure that third parties could publish games on 3DO without those same restrictions, which is, there's some good and bad there.
Yeah, you gotta remember also the launch of the 3DO was mangled quite a bit. The idea, I think, as I've heard it from, because I've actually talked to several people who did work on the 3DO, and also published games in Japan for it, mostly. And I think the idea originally for the 3DO was that there would be competition on the hardware side to manufacture the machine. Whereas Nintendo, for example, when they make the Super Famicom at the time, it would be only Nintendo that manufacture and publish that. The 3DO, however, could be licensed and kind of made by anyone who wanted to, which is why you have Panasonic, Gold Star, Sanyo, these different companies doing their own consoles.
And that's also why the price is so high, because the razor and blades market, it doesn't work.
Yeah, because the idea was that there would be different machine models on the market. And
it is, and I'm sure we'll cover the 3DO history and console itself
I think
in future projects. But for now, Road Rash was, of course, the fruits of one of EA's, I guess you could say. This was one of their biggest games in the system.
Would you say the biggest at this time?
Very bizarre art style.
Yes, in this game especially. This is very 90s, by the way. Even down to the soundtrack, this is completely 90s.
Yeah, and all this artwork and stuff, which I think it's pretty neat, actually.
Yeah, these characters.
This game has a unique look with these over-the-top character drawings, you say.
It gives it kind of like a Cabbage Patch Kids feeling, those old cards.
Yeah, and it was known for its licensed soundtrack here in the menus and such, though in-game it actually uses original music.
Yes.
Had these videos, which actually, these are fun. These hold up pretty well.
I think this is the best use of FMV at the time, really. It's just these very short videos that kind of showcases the attitude of the game, rather than just, mangle it down by...
Exactly. So as we get into this next round then, so let's talk a little bit about the 3DO RGB mod. So
yeah, this is very interesting.
This is an internal modification that you can install. And the best part about this mod is that it's supported across just about every 3DO model except for certain Gold Star and very late FC10 top loading units from Panasonic, but most 3DOs you can use this mod in. This enables 240p on all of those consoles as an option. It was by default available in certain Japanese FC1 units, but you could mod it into some consoles with a certain video chip, but now a much wider range of 3DOs have access to it here.
Yeah.
Because originally the 3DO was set to output in 480i interlace mode, and it used some sort of I guess the chip was designed to smoothly upscale to 480i, but honestly it's a terrible idea because the games were all in the 320 by 240 range of resolution output, right?
Yeah.
So you're just blurring the pixels. That was not a great way to experience this system. So this is nice, but it also obviously adds true RGB output, and the image is correctly centered, so it doesn't go crazy. The brightness is fixed. It's no longer overly bright and requiring you to adjust your set. The video quality is just pristine.
It looks amazing, and I don't remember
it's
the 3DO looking like this. So
exactly, it's the cleanest signal I've ever seen from the 3DO, and it's something I've wanted for a while.
You mentioned though that the Japanese consoles had like an internal switch, I think, that could go 240p.
So yes, and I have one of those, and it's basically they call it Mode 1 and Mode 2.
Yes, I do remember seeing that. I never knew what those were back in the day.
That's what it is, and the thing is, though, is what that is on. It wasn't on all Japanese systems, and in the U.S., what that was a switch for the RF modulator, which would switch between channel 3 and channel 4. But the modulator is what you can remove here for this mod and install the RGB mod in its place, so it's a clean no-cut installation with an 8-pin output connector on the back, which is really nice. Whoa. So...
living on the edge,
but
John.
yeah, the thing is, though, is if you had a certain encoder chip, you could install a 240p switch in any 3DO with that chip. And I did that on one of my American 3DOs already, and it does work. The problem with that home mod, where you're essentially switching it from the legs of the chip, is that one, you couldn't boot in 240p mode. It just wouldn't work. The Japanese unit could, but if you added the mod, you could not by default. And two, it would often get the odd and even scanline fields reversed.
Oh, I see.
So you'd end up with an overly sort of like an incorrect looking image. So you'd have to adjust it a few times to get the correct looking image. And I always had issues with brightness, where the brightness was elevated on all the 3DOs I've owned compared to other consoles, and the image itself was like more off center. So the whole thing was just not great before. That said, there are still some drawbacks to using 240p in that it does actually increase performance slightly, very slightly in some games. It's usually not a problem, but there are occasionally titles that run a little bit too fast in some spots.
Oh, that's very interesting.
It's rare, but it can happen.
What about Road Rash then?
So, Road Rash, no, it has no impact.
Okay.
And honestly, Road Rash is a game that could benefit from further
Yes.
performance improvements, as you're seeing. So yeah, it's a really nice mod, and it finally makes it possible to achieve excellent video quality from a 3DO, especially in a CRT, of course, which has led to me exploring the library in more detail.
Oh
again,
yeah, you and I have been spending
really
a lot of time
nice.
with 3DO. Unfortunately, we've been spending more time with CDI, but
yeah, wow. See, this game is rather challenging to achieve a good place, and I'm very out of practice, and also, playing through capture, not fun. But of course, when you lose, you get these lovely videos. Look at this.
that is true. It's a good way to lose, huh? Yeah, I always loved Road Rash due to the sprawling stages. The fact that you start in the city, you kind of go out into the landscapes. It always made me feel kind of free. It's a strange kind of, even though it's a 2D racer from behind, which was plenty of back then, I just feel like Road Rash feels more free. Might be because you can run over pedestrians and kick the cops, but
yes, exactly. The thing about this game, though, I really I feel like this was possibly the height of the series.
Yeah, it's an
Where
early peak, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. But that's the thing. I like the earlier Genesis games a lot. They're quite fun.
Yeah.
But the frame rate's actually even lower than this.
Yeah.
And they have pretty rough presentation in a lot of ways.
Because they are kind of digitized too, aren't they?
So no, that's only applicable to 3.
The World Tour or whatever.
Yeah, Road
okay.
Rash 3 is when they made
That's
the jump
only
to
that's the only Genesis one I played was the third one.
Yeah, see, the first two I think look much nicer.
Okay.
It's more like hand-drawn pixel art design, whereas for the third one they went for the digitized sprite look, which doesn't hold up as well. And this actually is doing that as well, but 3DO just has more colors, and also the environment is truly 3D. Now, what's interesting about this game is that this was not a 3DO exclusive. This did come to other platforms, including Saturn and PlayStation.
Even Sega CD, no?
Well, so the Sega CD version is essentially like a continuation of the old school style. Well, what happened here?
Oh, you're in the bushes.
I can't get out.
You're stuck in the bushes? Well, this is now
See, the gas doesn't work there.
just
All
race
right.
on foot. Just walk the entire route.
So, you know what? While we're here, this is unexpected.
Welcome to the real world.
I'm stuck in the bush. This has never happened before.
Oh, you say that.
Okay, there we go. So let's take a break here and explore nature, shall we?
Just do this on foot.
We're just gonna run down the street
This is
here,
now the,
see how far I can get. I've never actually tried to see how far you can get.
I think you can probably
on
do the
foot.
whole route. No, this is like Tasmania. If you ever played that game,
Yeah, I feel like at some point the game's gonna be like, no, go back to your bike.
I actually don't think
Maybe.
it will.
Let's find out.
All right, this is we know.
So we switch. It's like open
We
world.
just created a new game.
The Elder Scrolls Road Rash is what we're playing now. Can't read this. Oh wait, you kind of can.
It's doing like a power walk. This guy. Oh wait.
Oh wait.
Oh, the police is coming.
Like the
Run,
police comes. Like I guess it's a pedestrian running down the street.
Yeah, with a helmet. And,
They're not too happy
suit,
about that.
so-
Oh, see. This is
Oh wow. Okay. Just set the dog on him. All right.
this is wow.
Oh man, they just keep.
Not sure that this would fly today.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny actually. Okay, so that's what happens. I've never actually tried that.
Yeah.
So they just they sick the dog on you.
I feel like you can. What's the other game at this time where you can get stopped by cops like this? Is it Need for Speed?
So I can't recall
Yes,
when
I think Need for Speed 1 has that you can get busted by the cops too, and it gives you like a video.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah. This is
They obviously, you're right. It was earlier on, and then they made a huge deal out of it later.
yes, and
For Need for Speed 3 Hot Pursuit,
yeah.
when it was really focused on the cops.
Yeah. We actually had a
That was
long
a great
discussion
game.
about Need for Speed yesterday. So
Yeah. So yeah, I was talking about the other conversions, right? So like Sega CD was it has this aesthetic with the menus and the videos and such. It has the licensed soundtrack that plays during gameplay,
yes,
which is cool. But the actual gameplay is more like it is the other games, the 16-bit Sega Genesis / Mega Drive versions. It's a new game based on that look. Whereas the Saturn and PlayStation versions are sort of a conversion of this game. And they have some interesting differences because all three systems render 3D in a very different way. So they don't look exactly the same. But Saturn and PlayStation do look, they run significantly faster.
oh,
So the
okay.
actual frame rate is much higher.
Yeah,
And in this game, it actually works out okay. In Need for Speed, it's interesting because, as I covered in that video, the games just run a lot faster on Saturn and PlayStation. And so it actually ends up changing the feel. It's much more of a high-speed racing game, whereas on 3DO, it feels like a driving
like a
game.
simulator almost. Yeah.
Yeah, this one, it's not so much an issue there. It does look better, I think, overall. Although the PlayStation, of course... Wow, what the... I'm doing awful here. Trying to talk about the game. So, the PlayStation version has the dithering. That's typical to PlayStation. Saturn version has its own unique look. So they all look different. The 3DO version does look really nice. But yeah, the frame rate is much, much lower overall. So... But it's not unplayable. I mean, it's comparable to the older Road Rash games.
Yeah.
Actually, it's maybe even a little bit smoother. And you got to remember, I mean, this is the same year, I think, that Stunt Race FX came out on Super NES, right?
Yeah, that would be correct, I believe.
So for having a home racing game running like, even like this was such a huge step over what you could see on other home consoles at the time, including the Jag. The Jag did not have any true 3D racing games that ran well.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
I mean, Super Burnout is gorgeous, and that does, but that's that's like a sprite scaler.
Yeah, that's a super scale game, basically.
which is awesome looking.
Yeah, I love Super Burnout.
But it's not real 3D in this sense. It's not like this.
Yeah.
So yeah, this was really, really impressive, and just like the whole presentation, the quality of the visuals. I mean, you see Cruisin' USA in the arcade runs smoother. It does look more detailed overall, but this isn't that far behind. So it did really feel kind of like a next generation thing. So did you own a 3DO back then?
No, I always wanted a 3DO as much as I wanted a CDI. And yeah, this was one of the reasons why I wanted to own it. It was specifically Road Rash and Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo. And
oh yeah, which is a pretty good version.
it's a very good version with the FM Town soundtrack.
That's right.
But The availability, as some people probably know, I am from Norway and grew up in Norway. So the availability of the 3DO here was quite limited. I don't think even my friends in the Swedish retro scene, I don't think any of them even owned the 3DO back then. So it'd be interesting to go back and look at whether or not this console was, released in Northern Europe.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. I mean, it was in Europe, but I don't know about which territories specifically,
It certainly
which
was
regions.
not. I know that like the Jaguar, for example, had like some sort of expanded availability in Denmark. That's for another video.
Also,
I
it
guess.
seems quite well known in the UK. The Jaguar does.
Yes,
for some
because
reason.
this.
I know plenty of people that have it over there.
Well, the Jaguar, Atari in general, but the Jaguar specifically had a marketing push in the UK. Even Sega at some point was supposed to step in and help manufacture the Jaguar. So
yeah.
the Jaguar had a chance to actually kind of make a mark on the UK scene, but it was too late.
That's funny because Sega originally approached Atari. Was it? I think, or no? That was that Nintendo or Sega that approached Atari about marketing their. No, I think it was Nintendo with the NES.
Oh yes, that is true. There was some talks.
Yeah, that's
then.
what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Totally different thing. But yeah, so hey, I actually finished a race there. Look at that.
Got somewhere.
Get your trophy.
I think the quality of the PlayStation, because I had this game on PlayStation as you mentioned, and I think the quality of the FMV was quite different on the PlayStation, wasn't it? At least color-wise.
I'd have to double check.
Yeah.
And the PlayStation is better suited to FMV than the 3DO, I'd say, overall.
This is a play along.
3DO games tend to have a lot of macro blocking.
We should one day do a retrospective on Road Rash, I think.
Maybe so.
Maybe so.
See what people think. Yeah. But yeah, this was an interesting time for sure, and this is definitely a game that I enjoyed a lot. So, again, having come to it much later.
Yeah, as I mentioned, I only played the third game on Mega Drive. Now, one interesting thing about the Mega Drive games, though, is that the music is handled by Rob Hubbard, who is like a Commodore 64 legend and a friend of mine. So I don't think it's his best soundtrack or anything like that. It's certainly no Monty Mole, but it is still interesting to just kind of see him floundering around the EA history. I did talk to Rob about the 3DO at some point when he was over visiting a couple of years ago, and he doesn't have much good to say about the 3DO due to its sound capabilities. He was kind of hurt by the fact that he was expecting the 3DO to have its own sound chip that he could kind of play around with, and then in the end it does not, or at least not to the extent that he wanted it to have.
Well, I mean, the 3DO came into an era when there was a focus on digital pre-recorded media. Yep. So there was less of a need.
And that wasn't Rob's arena at all, so I can see why he was kind of upset about that.
Though, of course, the Saturn and especially the PlayStation were actually both of them were really well suited to non-pre-recorded music, or at least like sample-based playback, similar to the Super NES, but at much higher quality.
Did you know that this game was actually announced for the Super Nintendo at some point?
Road Rash?
Yeah, it was. I remember this, and I'm pretty sure people will double check, but I do remember this. That I think THQ was supposed to be publishing it. I just remember seeing like mentions of it in GamePro, I think back then. I was a subscriber to EGM and GamePro. And I remember.
How did you get those over in Norway?
Oh, so we had our kiosks called Narvesen, which are still around. For any Norwegian listeners, I'm sure their hearts will be on fire right now. And we can order a hot dog and read our magazine. So we had access to EGM, GamePro, Superplay, which was my absolute favorite. If anyone listening read the magazines back in the day, Superplay was the best one. There's no and Mean Machines. I have to say that for contractual reasons. And yeah, we had Norway was fun in that sense that we had a lot of freedom to just import magazines, or importing here wasn't difficult. And in fact, me and my brother imported games from a very early age, which is why I have that kind of background.
What's interesting is that also like perhaps that played into your exceptional English skills.
No, that's the Ninja Turtles and Hulk Hogan.
Okay. So wait, there should be like a program Learn English with Hulk Hogan.
And Michelangelo. Yo, dude.
Yeah.
Come on, brother. Yeah. So no, I don't know. I don't know if they're exceptional even, but yeah, I don't remember having many English classes in school, but I watched so many movies, and I always say that Ninja Turtles and Jean-Claude Van Damme were my English teachers, and people give me weird looks. But late night martial arts cinema and Ninja Turtles in the morning were pretty much my
That'll
teachers.
do it. Yeah. Good. Wow, did you see that guy?
Yeah.
That was great.
This is what's fun about the game.
That's Road Rash right there. Like, he just came right up and just shoved a foot.
So for some reason, I don't know why I'm bringing this up, but like when I was playing this with my friends back in the day, we used to hold down the kick button, and I think at least on the PlayStation, he would continuously kick from side to side, and we'd always call it the Swiss dance. There's no such dance in Switzerland, but we just like, oh well, let's do the Swiss dance down the street, and even to this day, we kind of do this in real life even when we bicycle and whatnot. So Road Rash has had the impact on my life, I guess.
Hey, you know. Wow,
Look at the vista. The stages were so like beautiful for a game like this at the time, because you
see, this is what reminds me of Cruis'n USA.
Yeah, absolutely.
This type of terrain and the camera work.
There's like two reasons for this, I feel, because first of all, you can kind of drive out on the sides of the stage, like so it doesn't just hard cut at like a line on the pedestrian sides.
Well, there kind of
there
is,
but it's much further out.
It's a little bit off to the side.
Yeah, and then also just the size of the stages. Like, I was coming from games like Lamborghini and whatnot on the Amiga at this time, which, you know, from behind racers, but they were flat and just kind of, you know, an occasional tunnel like Outrun. But here you have slopes and you have like sprawling stages. There's multiple routes, which is something we haven't mentioned yet.
That's true.
And
we saw that a few times, and actually the frame rate always seems to tank when you hit those.
Yeah. Is this the first Metroidvania
junctions?
Racer? So
maybe, except for you don't return.
Everything is Metroidvania today.
Now that is some great art right there.
Yes, that dog is. Look at that dog, relieving himself.
Look what he's doing. He's up to This is interesting.
But while we haven't done a retrospective yet on this, we should mention some of the other games, because Road Rash, yeah, you said it peaked with this game and its subsequent ports, but there was the 3D games. Did you ever play those?
Yeah, those are less brilliant.
I have an affinity for them. I don't think they're as bad as people think, especially Jailbreak, I think is okay. There is one, though, that I think has been completely forgotten in history, and that's the GBA Jailbreak game.
Yeah, that one actually, you're right. I hadn't played that, but
I had that
recently
when it came out. For some reason, when I got...
It's really good.
Yeah, for some reason I picked up Road Rash on GBA, and I didn't even look at it. I was just like, I miss Road Rash. Maybe it's the same as the old ones. And it is. It's kind of like this forgotten sequel to this game. It's much more colorful.
It runs like a dream.
But... it doesn't have like the grunginess of this, but it's not the 90s anymore. So, and this game is the 90s to the 9s.
It is.
So,
but I think that that's probably gonna do it for this episode here. I think it was a kind of a fun way to look back on this. And if you guys want to see more on like the Road Rash series as a whole, do let me know, and maybe I can do a proper full-on DF Retro episode on it next time, or not next time, but sometime in the future.
Or the 3DO.
But thanks for joining me on this one, Audie.
Oh, no problem.
And I'm sure, depending on when this goes up, people will be hearing you again in many other videos, no doubt.
Yes, we will be making more DF Retro proper episodes, but in between, we think it's fun to just sit down and record these things. Recording us talking might be a thing for the future, actually.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But anyway, if you guys did enjoy this one, just let us know. Like, subscribe, ring that bell, all the good stuff. And you can find us over on Twitter as well for all sorts of random discussion. And yeah, until next time, stay retro.